So this might be one of my shorter reading vlogs, but I just thought that it was appropriate to do, and I wanted to capture my reactions to this as they happened. So here we are. Hi guys, it's April, and since the manga version of Fangirl, at least volume 1, is now out, I thought it would be fun to do a reading vlog as I go through this one. I do have a reading vlog of a reread of the original Fangirl's novel. And since I did that, I thought it would be fun to do a reading vlog with at least this first volume and probably the rest of them as they come out. But at least this first volume, just to do a comparison between the two and how I feel about the different formats. So this is what this is. I thought I'd give that brief introduction. This probably isn't going to be the longest because it is a manga and it's not going to take me that long to get through, but it will be interesting to see where they decided to stop this volume in the original storyline. So hopefully you will stay for the rest of the journey of this with me, but yes, I will update you as soon as I get to a good stopping point. So I just finished the first section in the manga adaptation of Fangirl, and you can equate it to about the first chapter of Fangirl in the novelization. They're gonna break it up the same way, and it does feel like it's going to be exactly identical, which is nice, except for you have that visual element, so you have body language that is telling a lot of the story compared to having to read it out. Now, I will say one thing that it is kind of tripping me up a little bit, and I didn't really expect it to be tripping me up, is the fact that Fangirl takes place in the same town in which I live. So I know a lot of the location, I know the scenery of everything going on. I didn't necessarily expect the artist to know that or have all of that mapped out, but I almost keep on trying to find the things I know. And unfortunately, that's not gonna happen here. And I can't really fault them for that. I just keep on trying to find the familiar in this. Right now, the characters feel like themselves, which is good. You can definitely feel Kath's like anxiety about starting college and not being with her sister. And here you have it a lot more in that body language, which I mean, it could have been happening in the book, but since you don't have that visual element, you don't really see it. You just had the internal dialogue going on in Kath's head. And I guess I've always kind of pictured it that nobody else wasn't really noticing how panicked she was. But the way it's coming off on the page, you can definitely tell. So it's almost like, did the characters know that Kath was like freaking out this whole time? Because it is clearly mapped out there. I will say her roommate Reagan, I had some thoughts of what she looked like in my head that don't necessarily match how she is right now in here. That might change as I slowly get more into the manga and start getting into the art style and what the artist was going for. But those are my first initial thoughts. I am now going to jump into the first section of Simon and Baz. We will see how all of this goes. Here's where I think things are gonna start to differentiate themselves, because the whole point of Fangirl is in between Kath's life and everything going on, you have chapters or sections from the original Simon and Baz novelizations, and you also have chapters or sections from Kath's fan fiction that she's writing. I guess I didn't really contemplate how that was going to translate into manga form, and they're kind of, at least for the first part, when they're first introducing Simon and Baz to the reader, they kind of opted out of doing that. You instead have those traditional, so when you start manga, sometimes they have like character profiles, and that is exactly what they did for Simon and Baz. Instead of getting when Simon and Baz meet in school in the original novelizations, you just get the character profiles, manga form in here. So it's basically just 2 pages. So there's an interesting thing going on right in the storytelling right here, because it's not divided up in quite the same way as the original novelization. The Simon and Baz sections aren't happening quite in the same places, and there are also scenes that are shifted to slightly different points in the storytelling than when they originally happened, which it hasn't hurt the storytelling so far. It's just one of those things like, If I hadn't have read the novelization, or if I hadn't read it just so recently, I probably wouldn't have noticed, because it still has all of the same feels about it, and you're starting to pick up some of the same things. But there are points in here where we have conversations that are condensed and things are left out. And so I feel like I'm missing some of the connections that start to form at the beginning of this book, because you have Kath and Levi when they first start kind of interacting, and Levi is this very outgoing person and he's trying to get Kath to come out of her shell, and Kath is very much assuming that Levi is Reagan's boyfriend, and she kind of doesn't know how to deal with him and everything going on. You have this like great big conversation with Levi and Kath's first day of school, where Levi is asking her how it was, and she was a freshman, what she's studying, and what people she met. So right there, you start to see the differences between Levi and Kath, and how Levi is all about, well, what were your social interactions like? Who did you meet? How did you start forming your friend group, or start forming bonds or networks and things like that? That didn't happen here. You didn't even have Levi even once start asking Kath how she was reaching out to broaden her community. It was automatically just like, how was your first day? And she's like, fine. And then he's like, well, what are you studying? And they go into that, and he talks about, and he mentions range management, and then Reagan's like, let's not talk about that. And it kind of ends there, which I'm a little disappointed about, because the whole point of this book, okay, not the whole point, but one of the major points in this is how much Kath grows from being this very internal person, this very anxiety-ridden human that I completely understand, who started out college afraid to eat in the cafeteria. And then she has these interactions with Levi and other people on campuses, and she slowly starts to accept more into her world. And that conversation, that first conversation in the novel, I mean, it wasn't their first conversation, but that first true conversation kind of starts to open that up of what is to come. But that's not here. It's not. And I don't think we're gonna get any sections from the original Simon and Baz. I think we're just going to have the chunks, the 2-page spreads that feel like the very classic manga style, where you've got the characters and those kind of fandom poses and the nerdy geeky stuff, where the ones that you want to put on your wall that could make perfect posters, the art style that is more detailed and doesn't necessarily follow the whole art style in the manga, but that's what you think of when you think of manga. I think that's all we're gonna get in here, which is okay. But you don't get to see that contrast between the original Simon Snow novels and then Carry On by Kath. And we did get a little bit of Kath's fan fiction starting to form in here really early in the book, that I don't think came as early in the original, if I'm remembering correctly. And I know I'm nitpicking. These are just things I'm noticing. So far, it's only the shortening of the conversations that I feel like are pulling a little bit out of the original structure of the story. I can understand why they are moving some of the other elements around, but I thought I'd mention those. I think we're gonna get some timeline compression in this book, because Kath is having a conversation with her sister and her sister's roommate, Courtney. And I feel like it's a mashup of several different conversations that happen not necessarily all at the same time. In the original timeline of things, here is nearly happening all at once. So we get the conversation of the fact that Kath is trying to figure out this dancing scene in her fan fiction, and then her sister inviting her to a fraternity party, and then bringing up her boyfriend and the fact that he's probably not gonna be staying sober. So, I mean, what is all of her deal and all of that kind of stuff? And I get that that's gonna happen, because otherwise you're gonna have like 20 volumes of this manga just to complete one novel, which I wouldn't be totally against if I'm honest. But you can definitely, just by the fact that they're smushing several conversations together, means that they're pulling out things from those original conversations and not putting them in and changing it up a little bit. And one choice that they did decide to make, which I'm not entirely sure why they decided to do it, and it's not the biggest of deal, But I know when Kath is talking with her sister about her fiction writing, and her sister's trying to be a little like, you've just got a whole bunch of ninth graders reading your stories, you don't need me. Kath brings up the fact that it's not just ninth graders, it's just a bunch of people in Japan as well. Her audience is heavily focused on a Japanese audience, and she doesn't know why that is. It's just weird. At least that's how it is in the book. Here in this manga, like I said, I'm not exactly sure why they did this, is they switched it to Norway. So Norwegians instead of Japan in Japanese. Just a random thing that I noticed. Oh, you just got a full view of me reading. I forgot to shut off the camera, didn't I? Sorry about that. Anyways, I'm not even halfway through this book, and I have another moment for you. I didn't think this vlog was going to be as much as it's probably going to be, because I didn't think I was gonna have this many moments where I wanted to sit here and talk to the phone, camera, whatever you wanna call this thing. Because usually I read these things within like a half hour. That's usually all the longer these take me. But I'm finding myself just sitting here and contemplating this format compared to the original format, and what the original format did for me, and the story that one told to me, and how I connected with that. I really connect with the character of Kath because she's dealing with a lot of the same social anxieties that I deal with on a daily basis, that I went through in college. I recognize a lot of the things that she was going through in this whole story. So that's why I've always really liked Fangirl. But what I'm noticing with this, and some of the things I'm starting to take a little bit of issues with, is because of how they're telling the story and what they're doing with the story. You have a moment where Kath is kind of recognizing that she is with her boyfriend because that is what she's assuming that she's supposed to do. That is, she feels safe, he's solid. She doesn't have this epic grand love. She has more of a connection with Simon and Baz than she does with her boyfriend, and her sister calls her out on it. And at the same time, Kath is calling her sister out on the fact that she seems to fall in and out of love. And we say love loosely because she's more in it for the chase. At least that is what Kath is putting onto her sister. And here in this book, Kath doesn't have a lot of grace for her sister. She doesn't... In the book, Kath recognizes some of the things that are going on, but the whole point of Kath is that she's very much wrapped up in her own little world, that she doesn't recognize some of the external things that are going on. But here, Kath goes like straight for her sister's gut in her internal dialogue that she doesn't in the book. Because you have a moment here where Kath is like, yeah, you have never been in love. What are you talking about? Even if you have gone all the way with someone. In the book, Kath doesn't push her sister off that ledge. She doesn't point the finger like that. She's just more of like, she recognizes the fact that yes, this is how I am feeling about my situation. I don't see an issue with it. You come from a different place, and this is my world. She's not so much of that, a little bit of a mean girl in that moment, and I didn't like it. And then we have the final, or the conversation where Reagan and Kath actually start forming a little bit of a friendship, which I've always found really hilarious because this is when a lot of Kath's moments are coming to light with how she has this social anxiety, and a lot of moments in which I connected with her because she's like, I can't do this because I don't know what the protocol is. That is what is terrifying me so much. Let me explain this a little bit of why I can't do this. And then Reagan is all like, well, we're friends now just because you're making me feel so sorry for you and you're so pathetic. So good job, you. We're friends now. And she does it in that kind of like manner as well. But here we have Reagan calling her out, and instead of Kath starting the conversation along the lines of, hey, I don't know where the cafeteria is, to kind of hide the fact that she has this huge anxiety around everything, she just goes straight up and it's like, I don't know how it works. And the reason it's done is because they're trying to condense Reagan and Kath's dialogue down so that things can keep on happening. So Kath never has that moment of having to explain to Regan, put into words what she's going through with the fact that like, where do I stand in line? Where do I sit? How do I like interact with this space that I have never been in before? And pulling that information out of Kath, it doesn't happen here. And those are the moments I connect with, and they're not happening. And I'm a little saddened by that. And I know these are completely different formats. They're geared to very different audiences, but Kath's internal struggles and slowly coming out to people and learning to be outside of her own head is a great big journey in this story, and it feels a little glossed over right now. We're losing a lot of that foundation. At least that's my feeling on it right now. I don't know. Yep. It's me again. Welcome back. So we've gotten to the point where we're starting to get some of Dad's situation is starting to come up here. His maniac episodes you're starting to see, and how Kath is worried about him, and how she's taken on that role and their dynamic. We're also getting a little more interaction between Kath and her sister, and then Regan, who's like, okay, you're not gonna do this anymore. I'm getting you out. We're going bowling. And then I believe there's a whole section. There's a section missing in it. This takes place in Nebraska, and I don't know if you guys know a lot about Nebraska, but Husker football is a big deal around here. I usually go into hiding whenever there's a game. I don't go out because it gets crazy, and I don't want to be in the middle of that. Not a football fan. But basically the town goes completely red on a Husker day, even when it's not even football. Sometimes it's basketball or any kind of sport. And that played a role in the book, which is also kind of why it's like, this is my place. I get this. This is my thing. That, of course, isn't anywhere in here. It's just a minor thing that I had to be like, why are you taking out anything that makes this even remotely Nebraska? Yeah, we're talking about herds, we're talking about cows, we're talking about buffalo, but in the process of doing that, you're kind of just like making me feel like you're making us a generic Midwestern place. And that's how everybody perceives this area, is we're all cornfields and cows, which isn't the case. I would like to think that isn't the case. We've got a lot more than that. I mean, we have a lot more than Valentino's and Starbucks as well, but completely different story. We're making this a little bit more generic than I want it to be, and it's saddening me. I think I'm getting a little bit aggressive towards this, and I shouldn't be. So I'm gonna come back down. I'm gonna see where this goes. I'm gonna be a little more about everything that's going on, and maybe not so, maybe. So I've probably got about a quarter left of the manga. We've gotten to the point in which Abel, Kath's boyfriend, has called and officially broken up with her, pointing out the fact that they weren't really kind of going out. There wasn't really any feelings there. And then we have Kath and her sister, Ren, having the conversation about the breakup. And then you're starting to come to this realization that both Kath and Ren's relationships are stemming from what has happened between their parents, and that very dynamic blow up that we don't really know about as a reader yet, but that has formed what is happening to these girls. So Kath is one direction of, she wants to find stability. She doesn't want that fire because she wants to be able to handle if things go wrong. She doesn't want to be left in a mess. Where you have Ren, who is all about that, the rush, about finding that feeling, about the euphoria that comes at the beginning of everything. And it's that just, that she never wants to get into. She doesn't like that place of stability, or she doesn't like that place of calm or boredom, almost. So they're complete opposites, which, like I said, is a play off of what has happened with their parents and the fallout of all of that. And then we also have Levi coming in and finally meeting Ren, and Kath starting to acknowledge that she doesn't want to be considered the ugly twin. And then Levi has that adorable moment where he's like, "You're not the ugly duckling. You are Clark Kent. I just need a warning when you take your glasses off because now I know what's underneath." Which is cute, but at the same time kind of like, I don't think glasses change a person that much, but that's coming from me who has chosen to wear glasses all the time. So, yeah. I have to stop and have this moment of, finally, we're getting some like identifiable landmarks that I can point exactly where they're located at. I didn't really get that in the beginning because, you know, the pizzeria, very distinctly called Valentino's in the book, decided not to put that in the manga. I don't know why, because clearly they're okay with putting Starbucks in here. I guess more people relate to Starbucks than they do with Valentino's. I relate to Valentino's. It's fine. But it's just exciting to see. I don't know. It makes me happy. I do have to say, this spread is probably one of my favorites, just seeing Kath's room and the barf up of Simon Snow stuff. And then, you know, it just, I understand being a fangirl, and yeah, it just makes me smile. I'm starting to get some smiles in this, and it only took me nearly all of the manga to get there, unfortunately. I finished it. I think we're probably at about a fourth of the way through the original novel. We ended at the place in which Kath gets a 911 text from her sister. She's been called out for plagiarism. She's had her cute little moment with Levi at Starbucks. She's gone back to see her dad. Her dad has finally told her that he's been talking to their mother, and he's already talked to Ren about it, and Ren is actually thinking about meeting their mom at some point, and Kath is kind of just like, heck no. She's out of my life. She chose to be out of my life. She's not in my life anymore. It's not, no. You should never do that. That is just not something I want. So my camera memory filled up completely, and in the 3-4 years that I've owned this camera, I've never run into that issue. That first time for everything. I think I was in the middle of talking about the fact that Kath and her dad had the conversation about possibly talking to her mom, and Ren is okay with it, Kath is not. There's some tension between the sisters because of that. And of course, all of this is kind of escalating because of the college experience where Ren's going off one direction, Kath is feeling left behind. And so it does have a lot of the same things going on that the original novelization does. And I think this section of the book is doing pretty well at that, even if things are condensed more and you're not getting some of the smaller moments that I really appreciate and really, really liked in the original story. I think the only thing that really stuck out with me is when she goes home, she does a lot of burritos with her dad every night from all of their favorite places. And I know for a fact that around this area, we've got a lot of good Mexican foods. So in the original, we have Kath going to a whole bunch of different taco trucks and doing a whole bunch of different authentic Mexican foods. And that kind of got condensed down into just burritos. And it's those weird little things that I don't know why I'm getting hooked on them, but I'm like, don't make us too generic. We do have some culture out here, because I know I mentioned this in my original Fangirl vlog, but we are one of the places where a lot of immigrants and refugees get located because we have that infrastructure here. And so we have a lot of diverse food, which is why I really love living here. It's because I have my authentic Korean places that I love to go to. I have my authentic Mexican places, and we've got Chinese places, and we have a couple of African places, and it's just, it depends on where the immigrants are coming from at any given point in time, and if they decide to stay here for sure. But this is usually one of the places where they start, and I love the food scene for that reason. And that is one of the things I liked in the original book, is we're talking about all of the authentic Mexican food that I know if you go down to like Texas and some of the southern states are like, oh no, we have the authentic Mexican food because we're right on the border. But surprisingly, we have a lot of like Mexican food around here. I digress. Overall thoughts on all of this, I enjoyed it. I'm not enjoying it as much as I did the original novelization for the various different reasons I have mentioned. I do like the art. I am, of course, going to continue on, and I will probably be continuing to do these vlogs as each of the volumes come out. And is one adaptation better than the other? It's kind of hard to pull myself out of that because I do have such a strong connection to the original novel, and I feel like you get so much more into Kath's head, and that is the story for me, whereas this gives a good format for people who don't really want that kind of experience, and they're more used to this visual art. I think this gives them a good story as well. So I'm not telling anybody never to read this because I think it is good. My favorite will probably, just going off of this first, is probably still going to be the novel, though I do like seeing the visualization of some of the things. And of course, I have no idea when the rest of this is going to be coming out, but as each of the volumes come out, I will continue to do these vlogs. So if you want to get notifications of when that happens, subscribe down below, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.